Welcome back everybody to another video. In this video we are gonna discover what boost mode really is, and I'm gonna show you some tests that I did on Modern Warfare Warzone for the FPS counter. Now for the counter you can't do that right now on the S or the X on the series, but just on the PC. But this correlates with that because on some games on the Series S, in the menu it does not have the 120 hertz option, and on the Series X they do have the 120 hertz option. Now does that mean that your game doesn't do 120 hertz? Not necessarily. So that's why we're going to figure out what the boost mode is. So let me explain a little bit about boost mode first. Let's educate ourselves on FPS boost. What is Xbox FPS boost? FPS boost is a clever technology that doubles, even quadruples the frame rate of existing Xbox One games for play on the Xbox Series X or S. It is applied at system level by the Xbox itself, so it doesn't require the developer to change or remaster its game. This is different to game re-releases, remasters, or games optimized for Xbox Series XS. It is also only applicable on certain games announced as compatible. Many of the titles announced so far are now compatible running at a locked 60 frames per second, while they were originally locked at 30 frames per second. Some even get a boost up to 100 FPS, 120 FPS. You will need a TV compatible of 60 Hz or 120 Hz respectively, but you won't have to do anything in the settings of your Xbox to benefit. It's worth noting that games could run at a reduced resolution when FPS boost is active. However, you can manually switch FPS boost and auto HDR on or off in the compatibility options in the game management screen for each respective title. To do so, head to the game in your game library, hit the options button, scroll down to manage game and add-ons, click on it, and you should see compatibility options. On the next page, on the left hand side, click on that and you can use the tick box for FPS boost if the game supports it. Some titles where resolution is affected will not switch FPS boost on automatically. So now that we have a sense of what boost mode is, bear in mind that for your console and game, if it doesn't have the 120 FPS support, it still have to have that boost mode option or capabilities for that game, for that console, as a side note. And since we can't do the tests for the FPS counter tests on the Series S or X for Modern Warfare Warzone, I'm gonna do that test on the NVIDIA GTX 1070 and the RTX 2060. Basically on Modern Warfare Warzone, on the 1070 on Warzone, it doesn't have that option for the 120 hertz refresh rate, but on the 2060 it does have the 120 hertz refresh rate in the option menu. So basically on the 1070 it's like running in boost mode on a Series S, and on 2060 it's like running the 120 FPS support for the Series X. Both display and monitor is outputting at 1440p and 120 hertz, and they both have G-Sync capabilities. So from my findings on the hardware that doesn't have the 120 hertz in the menu, so I'm assuming that it's running on some type of boost mode, because it does reach above 60 and over 100 FPS. Most of the time it stays an average of 100 FPS on the 1070. And for the 2060, the one that has the option of 120 hertz in the main menu, it is hitting the frames per second. It is hitting that 120 mark majority of the time, and even at times it goes above it. But so basically, the tests I did here for the same game, Modern Warfare Warzone, on a lower hardware that for some reason does not have that option of 120 refresh rate in the game menu, that I'm assuming is running at boost mode, which technically it is a higher refresh rate or higher FPS, above basically above 100 or average of 100. So it does have, so Modern Warfare Warzone does have the 120 hertz support, whether it be the FPS support or the boost mode support, because on the Xbox Series S and X, when you're running Modern Warfare Warzone, there's no indication in the game, or in the main menu. It doesn't have the 120 hertz option on the S for sure. And the last time I checked that Series X, it didn't have that unless they had an update. If there's an update on the Series X where they do have that option in the main menu of the Modern Warfare Warzone, I will put that in the description for that update. But as of right now, for the Modern Warfare Warzone on the Xbox Series S and the Xbox Series X, there is no 120 hertz option in the main menu, but it does have the support to for 120 hertz, because, or 120 frames per second, because I know a lot of people don't believe that Modern Warfare Warzone has the support for 120 FPS. So it does, and from the tests you can see here that in the first video, it's the GTX 1070, the one that does not have the menu of 120, but I'm assuming it's running in boost mode, so it's going to the it's trying to reach that 120 frames per second as much as possible. And in the second video, it's the 2060, which has the 120 in the main menu, and that one is hitting, with the FPS counter, it is hitting 120 frames per second majority of the time. So thought I'd make this video because I know that there's some controversy with Modern Warfare Warzone, if it actually supports it. I know that this is a PC because the version, but it correlates with the Xbox Series S and X on Modern Warfare, because when you look it up for Series S and the Series X, it does say by the devs that they support 120 frames per second, whether it be in boost mode or full support of 120 frames per second. And as you can see here, same game but on a different hardware, it has that 120 hertz refresh rate option in the menu to run that frames per second. So that is pretty much it for this video. Thanks for tuning in, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Hooded Dragons out.